world searching for gaming knowledge comes the man, the myth, a legend in his own mind, Critical. Welcome back everybody, Critical here, and I'm bringing you some more knowledge from Savage Lands. Today we're going to look at what's best to cut down a tree. We're going to look at weapon DPS and swing speed. We're going to look at the differences in attack range. And then we're going to compare swords and spears and find out which weapon might be best for you. Now to complete these tests, I'm using 10 tools and hammers. The reasoning is with a lower tier weapon, I get more hits, which gives me more data to give you the information. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Here we go. We're going to do things a little differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting up on the screen different captures of me doing these tests. In the upper left hand corner you have hatchet, on the upper right hand corner you have axes, and in the bottom left hand corner you have swords. So let's get this test started. Okay, you can see that the axe and the hatchet have already finished, but the sword is still going at it. Now, to be fair, the sword in its tooltip indicates that that weapon is best for breaking up or cutting down bushes and not trees. And the hatchet and the axe both say that they're best for cutting down trees. Let's take a look at those test results. The axe takes 6 hits and 4.57 seconds. The hatchet takes 6 hits and 4.67 seconds. The sword takes 30 hits and 21.43 seconds. The important thing to take away from this test is that the axe and the sword have exactly the same damage, 24 entity and 24 building damage, while the hatchet only has 5 of each. When the devs put in a modifier onto a weapon or tool and says that it's better for this or that, they really do mean it. In the case of the hatchet, it multiplies the damage by 4 times. In the case of the sword, it decreases the damage by 4 times. And I think in the case of the axe, it just leaves the damage right there. I think the axe is about the base damage of these 3 weapons hitting a tree. It's the modifier that's hidden from us that changes the effect that this weapon has on a tree. You're going to see that further in today's testing, so let's go ahead and move on to the next sets of tests. Now we're going to look at the DPS testing. To complete these tests, I had to go out and find some Kiliots, and I attacked them with the following 3 weapons: hammers, axes, and swords. To complete this testing, I stood in front of the animal and just let them hit me so that I wouldn't skew or affect the testing. What I'm going to put on the screen is axes in the upper left hand corner, hammers in the upper right hand corner, and then swords in the lower right hand corner. Let's go ahead and get these tests started. Now the first time I ran this test, I thought I was going to die when I was doing the axes, but I lived. And as you can see, the swords clearly won this test. So let's go ahead and look at the numbers. The axes took 8 hits and 5.4 seconds to kill the Kiliot, while the hammers took 8 hits and 5.50 seconds to kill the Kiliot. The sword, the winner in this test, took 8 hits and 5 seconds to kill the Kiliots. Now something to take away from this testing is that the axes and the hammers were virtually identical. That small margin of difference probably not going to make that big of a difference overall. But the difference between the axes, the hammers, and then the swords, that's half a second. That half a second worth of DPS, especially on a higher tier weapon, can really make a difference. Let's go ahead and look at these numbers a little deeper and see what they mean. Let's go ahead and break those numbers down. Each weapon does 24 damage to an entity or to a building per hit. At 7 hits, that would be 168 damage. We did 8 hits, so that was a total of 192 damage, but each mob, when they died, the last hit was a sliver, so I'm going to guess that each mob has about 170 hit points. Now, if we take that number and the number of hits we did, we can figure out the DPS of each weapon. In this case, the axe had a DPS of 35.55, the hammers have a DPS of 34.90, and the swords, the clear winner in this test, have a DPS of 38.40. Now remember, that's dual wielding the weapons, not single-handed. So you have to take that into consideration. But that leaves us with an open question. During my testing, I had to use my steel spear to kill one of the Kiliots. I was able to do it in a single blow, and that's 147 damage. But our testing shows that it took 8 hits. It should have taken 7. So either the tooltips are wrong, they weren't updated when they went from Legacy to Alpha, or there's hidden mechanics that I can't test and the devs haven't told us about. Now we're going to test the ranges of the weapons: hammers, axes, and swords. To do this test, I am just going to walk up and start hitting my house. I'm going to make sure that I can hit with each weapon, then I'm going to step back and I'm going to miss with each weapon, then I'm going to step forward one more time, making sure that I can once again hit with each weapon, and that's the maximum range of that weapon. Once I have that, I'll go ahead and drop a torch, and I'll repeat that process with the spear. Now, the spear's tooltip does indicate that it has a longer range. What I wanted to see was how much longer is that range. Now, I'd already recorded this, but one of my viewers actually requested it. Thank you. That's what I need from my viewers. Tell me what you want to know. That really helps inspire me. And if you hadn't noticed, I was inspired for this video. So I'm going to step back one more time. I just broke my poor house. And I'm going to miss. And as soon as I step back forward and I hit, that's the range. Right there it is. Now I'm going to drop the torch. I'm going to step around and you'll have a visual representation of the range of the spear. That's good information, but to really use it, we need to compare the swords versus the spear. To do this, I'm just going to go up to a tree and I'm going to start hitting it. Now I've already cut this down, and I went ahead and did a testing for 1.9 seconds. 1.9 seconds is how long it takes to hit with the spear twice. In that same time frame, I was able to hit with the swords 3 times. The swords do 24 damage per hit. I had 3 hits over 1.9 seconds for a total DPS of 37.89. The spear hit twice at 54 damage, also over the 1.9 seconds, for a total of 54.73 DPS. We learned today that the swords have the highest DPS of the class of weapons that we tested. The spear has the longest range. You have to ask yourself what's more important, having more DPS, the ability to hit the mob more often, or the ability to hit the mob with the greatest amount of damage from the furthest range possible. You also then have to ask yourself, is it more advantageous to be carrying 2 swords all the time or 2 hammers? Now, the hammers only have half a second less of DPS than the swords. If I was not fighting a larger mob and I was out mainly mining ores, I don't think I'd switch from my swords to the hammer every time I see a mob. Unless I was, for some reason I was worried about this mob taking me out, I just beat him up with the hammers. I can hit him just as far away as the swords, and it saves me time switching between the two. Now, if I'm entering a cave or entering a dungeon and I know that I'm going into a fight, then I'm going to want to have either the biggest range or the most DPS possible. The answers to these questions is not something that I can give you. This is something you have to answer for yourself. I hope you found this information useful. If it sparked another question, hey, Critical, you didn't look at this, please check this out. Let me know, please, because I love doing these videos and I need you guys to interact with me so I know what you want to see. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a nice day. Bye.